What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer is coming to its conclusion. We're back in Conference USA to talk about the New Mexico State Aggies. Really short intro today. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. I want to thank you all so much for clicking on the video and for helping to support the channel. If you'd like to support it even further, go down below, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss a thing during the college football season, and of course, of what few predictions I do have left. Now, I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry. You want to see all the cool stuff I get to do while still being up to date on what goes on this YouTube channel, then give me a follow, Twitter, Instagram, and feel free to even email me at tailgatenate29. And of course, my email, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for supporting and interacting with me in the channel in whatever way you may be doing so. Let's talk about Tony Sanchez and the New Mexico State Aggies. This is a team that played in the conference championship game in Conference USA not too long ago. And then you go take a look at last season, and it definitely was a very big downward slide. However, there is reason to believe and a lot of optimism for why this team is going to improve this season. You got another year of Tony Sanchez. You got some really talented portal pieces transferring in, including this man, who we'll talk about in just 1 second. And there is reason to believe that, look, I know it was a 3-win team last year. There's a lot of reason to believe that it's going to be a lot better here in Las Cruces, by the way, which is where we are. I did not mention that at the beginning like I usually do. Las Cruces, New Mexico. That's where the train is stopping for predictions today. How do we do preview predictions on the channel? Well, we do go through a roster overview. Offense over here, defense over here. It's offense left, defense right. And at the end of the video, we're going to go through the New Mexico State football schedule. I will give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. And this video overall is going to tell all of you what I think about the Aggies in 2025. Right down below me are returning production numbers. They're according to ESPN, factoring in portal additions to a slim but certain percentage. And then even down below that, your recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 are both according to 24/7 Sports. David Yost is your offensive coordinator this year, and the quarterback play was a very big point of contention for New Mexico State last year. It just wasn't good. Period. End of story. It was not good last season. Only 1,718 yards, one of few teams in the country to have under 2,000 passing yards that are not Armed Forces Academies, I will say. Only 5.4 yards per attempt. That's not yards per completion. That's yards per attempt. 12 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Yeesh, again, not good. And 44.1% completion percentage. Guys, is quite simply just not going to get it done. Now, I do believe that there are a couple of returning pieces into this back room, but it doesn't matter because the guy that you are going to get to start this year is Logan Fife. He was formerly at Fresno State. Last year played at Montana, where he threw for 1,885 yards, 14 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions on around 63% completion percentage. Did have some pretty good numbers over during his time with the Fresno State Bulldogs. You take a look back in 2022, where he had 892 yards on 70% completion. Interceptions were his problem that year, but while he played the most amount of football he has seen in a collegiate uniform last season, he transfers in here to New Mexico State team that, again, is desperate, is just really in desperate need for someone to solve that quarterback position for him this year. And I think it's going to end up being Logan Fife. I really don't see anyone else that you're going to find in this quarterback room this year, such as Parker Awad or literally any other name, stepping over Logan Fife and being that primary option. Just considering how bad the quarterback play was last year, I think you're going to see an immediate improvement when you take a look at Logan Fife. He also did have 5 rushing touchdowns last year, and while it is not an inherent forte of his, he definitely showed the ability with Grizz last year to be able to do it. I do like Logan Fife. I think he's a good quarterback and is absolutely, beyond anything else, a massive improvement based on what the folks in Las Cruces saw last season. Your top 2 tailbacks from last season, well, you're going to lose both of them as well. The likes of Seth McGowan has transferred over to Kentucky, leading rusher with 823 yards and 3 touchdowns. Second leading rusher, not too far behind Mike Washington. He's now with Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks, 725 yards and 8 touchdowns for him last season. Other than that, you did have one other guy that rushed for over 100 yards on only 7 carries, by the way. That is Lorenzo McMillan. Did rip off an 84-yard touchdown run, so okay, that's going to help him a little bit. But none of those names are really going to be the true features in this running back room. No, you're going to get a couple of West Coast transfers coming over from some former Pac-12 schools to be the lead backs for this team. I am talking about Kadarius Callaway, who's coming over from Cal, and Dijon Stanley, who is coming over from Utah. Again, Cal lost everybody in this running back room last year. Callaway was good in 2023, 623 yards and 5 touchdowns. Again, that was in 2023. And then Dijon Stanley, again, a guy coming over from Utah, still Power 4 experience that you will add. They will be the new features. And while there are some returning pieces, Callaway and Stanley are not doing to lead this backfield, much as those 2 running backs I mentioned earlier were last season. In your wide receiver room, well, your top 2 wideouts are actually going to be coming back. That's PJ Johnson and a true freshman from last year who's now a true sophomore in TJ Pride. Pride actually led the way in receiving, 374 yards, 2 touchdowns, with Johnson following behind at 346 yards and 2 touchdowns of his own as well. Now, the likes of McGowan, the running back I mentioned earlier, who's off to Kentucky, did contribute a lot through the air. The other running back in Washington, not so much. And you do lose some other depth pieces in this wide receiver room, but those 2 top wideouts are going to be joined by transfers, guys that enter through the portal, most notably Jackson Owens, who is over from Riverside Community College. He also went to a couple other community college stops, Iowa Western and Central Lakes College, before he's wound up here at the FBS level. Tells you he was a pretty good player, and he was. Tyler King, AJ Williams, Sean Brown, those are some other names that you'll enter through the transfer portal. So along with those 2 returning wideouts I mentioned earlier, all of those portal pieces will be big factors in this wide receiver room. Tight end room, your lead tight end in Austin Parks is going to be coming back, but according to ourlads.com, also is a pretty young player that, albeit even as the lead tight end, only had 2 catches last year. And I say lead tight end in terms of receiving yardage. The guy who had the most catches out of this tight end room last season was Jerry Lydiat, and I do believe that you're going to see him coming back as well. Yes, you do see him return to this team as well. But Austin Parks is expected to play second fiddle to a guy in Gavin Harris, who is entering through the portal. He is over from Central Michigan, also played a little bit of football at Howard. Has not seen the field a ton, at least didn't last year. My knowledge is not recollecting right now what he did at Howard, but over at Central Michigan, didn't really play too much, so he's going to come over here and hopefully be that starting tight end, at least according to ourlads.com. He is that right now, but you're also going to see Parks, and again, of course, the likes of Jerry Lydiat in this room as well. There are going to be 3 new starters on the offensive line group, and one of them probably going to end up being a freshman that the folks in Las Cruces are really excited about. Going to slot into that left guard position is J.R. Heklinski, hopefully said that name correctly, and you get some other transfers in to help replace what you lost, but overall this is going to be a young offensive line, especially from guard to guard. The interior 3, you have a redshirt sophomore, and then of course that true freshman that I mentioned to you just a little bit ago, and J.R. Heklinski. I read that right to left instead of the traditional left to right. Again, you do have some portal pieces coming in, which, okay, good. But overall, I mean, this run game did see some good success, in part because who they had in that backfield. But the pass protection has got to improve from last year. I think 31 sacks allowed, somewhere along that. Yep, 31 sacks allowed to this team last season. Or I should say to opposing defenses last season. That's got to get better. And again, it's going to be a young line that's got to fill in for a lot of starting roles. However, I do think the offense overall is just going to see improvement, and maybe the running back room is not as talented. We're going to find out. I do think your wide receiver room does get better. Again, it says it right there. I think it's an upgraded room. But beyond anything else, this offense is just going to see better results because the quarterback play is going to be better. The quarterback play is going to be better, so the offense will be better. Simple conversation, end of story. Defensive coordinator Joe Morris, let's talk about his unit. Well, the defense did have plenty of holes last season, had some ups, but mainly had a lot of downs. And overall, proved to not be that great of a unit. And now, plenty of roster holes are going to need to be replaced. The offense does return a fair bit of production, as of course we had mentioned. Even their leading passer, Parker Awad, a guy that I mentioned a little bit earlier, is going to be coming back. However, that defense, 39%. Yeah, it's got a lot of work to do and a lot of pieces that they need to fill in for, including some major pieces on the defensive front. It's going to be an entire new cast of starters that are going to make their way into this program via the transfer portal for most of them. Again, you do have a really experienced guy that I think I've mentioned on the channel before and whose name I will butcher, and Cole Schnettgecki, who is going to be a piece that just sees an increase in his role. Did not play a whole lot, but is a graduate student that should be in the starting role this season. As far as this 3-3-5 defense goes, what you have transferring in, Gabe Peterson. Okay, he's over from Utah State. Not a bad piece there. Josiah Jackson's over from Davidson College. Okay, not a bad piece there. Weird that he didn't follow his head coach. We'll tell you about that in a later video coming out today. D'Emanuel Brown is here, and there are some solid returning pieces, sure. But overall, I mean, this is the defensive front. I keep wanting to point over here. That's happened in a lot more videos. This defensive line over here just needs to be able to fill in for the gaps that they did leave because, again, pretty much in fact, I can tell you confidently, they're going to be trying to fill in for every starter on this line. All right, let's move on and ramble about this linebacking unit because it actually does have a lot of really nice pieces coming back to the second level of the defense, including your leading tackler, Tyler Martinez. You're going to get his running mate coming back as well. Believe he was a top 5 tackler last year. Insone Alpiu, believe is how you pronounce that. Apologies if it is in fact wrong. He, yes, was a top 5 tackler last year. Martinez had 94 tackles, and you have Alpiu with 55 tackles last year, including 5 passes defended and a pick as a linebacker last season. There are going to be some transfers that fill into the second level, such as Chance Barron, Nathan Wallen, and you do get a returner in Quincy Davis, but getting those two guys back are huge. And I didn't include jack position when I talked about the defensive front, so I'll include it here. Obina Okeke is transferring over from Louisiana Tech. Just 1 tackle for the Bulldogs last year, but is projected to play that jack position for the likes of this Aggie defense. So linebacking unit, I think actually going to end up being pretty solid because those are 2 really good productive pieces that are returning from last season. However, you can't say the same about the secondary unit because while your top 2 linebackers are back, your top 3 secondary pieces are all gone, which leaves DeCarrick Hobbs to lead this defensive backfield as a corner. He is the leading returning defensive back. Also led the team, tied for the team lead, I should say, in passes defended last year with 6 of them. Was a top 10 tackler, had 36 tackles. Overall is a pretty solid player. And while you do get some other guys returning, such as his opposite in the cornerback room, Josiah Charles, Nick Session is a really experienced returning piece. There are going to be a lot of transfers that file into this room. DJ Hill Smith is going to be coming over from the community college ranks. Same thing with Burnock Ia. He is over from Tyler Junior College, and then a lot of transfers into this 2 deep as well. So secondary was also not a very strong unit last year, so it also has got to see some good improvement. Freshman, highlighting this new special teams unit. Redshirt freshman Max Dean's going to be your punter, and David Barker is a freshman that, according to ourlads.com, they're going to have kick. However, if not him, then a redshirt senior and Ryan Hawk will take that kicking role. Kickers are people too, and we got to show them some love. So overall, you look at New Mexico State, and there are a fair bit of pieces that you're going to have to find the things to be able to replace, but I think if the defense can take some solid strides this year, I already told you I think the offense is going to get a whole lot better. This is a team that still needs some time and effort to really build. And of course, we got to see the results before we can confidently say, yeah, they're going to build back towards that conference title contending team. Right now, I definitely don't see that happening. Improvement from last year? Absolutely, because I think Logan Fife brings something different to the offense that you didn't see last year. And defensively, that linebacker unit really going to lead you and help hopefully be a solid unit. Well, now you're taking a look at the New Mexico State 2025 football schedule. But before we dive on in to this mess over here, you got to look down below me for some odds courtesy of FanDuel. Not me telling you what to do with your money, but it does provide some good context to see how good the odds makers believe the Aggies are going to be this season. We know this is a team that's going to take, or I should say, going to be quite the long shot to win the conference championship. I think they have the second or third worst odds in the conference. And of course, the college football playoff, well out of reach unless they can string together something really special. So I always say the important thing to watch in these group of 5 teams is that win total. 4.5 is that over under win total. Even if the under hits at 4, that's already an improvement from your 3-9 season last year. However, even the over at 5, you're still short of a bowl game, but it is a nice stepping stone in the right direction. And I think when you look at the schedule, 5 wins is really achievable this season. Now, you do have a couple of pitfalls, but overall, your non-conference schedule is actually pretty darn favorable because you get to play an FCS team in Bryant that I don't think is going to be one of the better FCS teams in their ranks, maybe even in their conference. And New Mexico State should be able to win that one. And I also think you're going to get one of the worst teams in the country this year, and that's the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Guys, to me, there's just not that much talent. I look at that Golden Hurricane team and say, okay, that can help them lead to something. Well, I think there are a lot of good individual pieces on that Tulsa team. Don't get me wrong, that's not knocking any of the individual players there. As a team and a coaching staff coming together, I just don't think Tulsa's going to have a very successful season, and New Mexico State should be able to start out 2-0 here. I really do believe that this is quite the opportunity for New Mexico State to get a jump on things and, again, really build some momentum early. This is a workable schedule. Even going on the road against Louisiana Tech is a winnable game. However, I think the Bulldogs are a more talented team than what the Aggies have here, and this is a Bulldog team under Sonny Kumbie that needs to start performing now. This has got to be the year for Louisiana Tech. Otherwise, they could be searching for a new head coach. It has just really not worked out in the Sonny Kumbie era so far. However, this season is expected to take that next level up. Evan Bullock returning at quarterback, O'Meary Wiggins, as well as Amani Givens. Love that 1-2 punch in the running back room. Wide receivers, much like New Mexico State, you get some of your nicer pieces returning, as well as a lot of transfers to help boost this room. But defensively is where it really sells it here for me. I think this Tech defense is going to be much better than the New Mexico State defense this season, and I think they match up well with what the Aggie offense can throw at you. And while you still are trying to figure some things out and maybe Fife getting comfortable in the system, so on and so forth, Louisiana Tech is going to be a team that's going to scratch, claw, fight. But what I have said in a lot of Conference USA videos, and is usually the case throughout this conference, the middle of the pack teams, New Mexico State, Louisiana Tech, potentially Sam Houston State, UTEP, Middle Tennessee, those are the teams that are going to be really, really tricky to try to figure out because who knows what they're going to do against each other. I think Louisiana Tech might be the best team out of the teams that I just spoke on there, at least talent-wise, and the Bulldogs win that game there in week 3. You get a nice bye week before your rivalry game on the road against New Mexico, but I sadly don't think this game is going to go too well for you. Now, I know Bronco Mendenhall is gone. He's left for another job in the Mountain West. He is left for Utah State, actually, team we are looking at in the next video here as well. And New Mexico has brought in a ton of transfers because they lost a ton of pieces. Devin Dampier, running back, wide receiver, defensive pieces all over the board. This secondary is entirely rebuilt. This running back room is entirely rebuilt. Probable starting quarterback, Jack Lane. Yep, he's coming over from the portal. He is over from Idaho. And even then, tight end room rebuilt. You're going to have to replace some offensive line pieces. New head coach this season is going to be Jason Eck. There is a lot of transition going on right now in Albuquerque. But I think because this is a rivalry game, I think New Mexico still has got some solid pieces. And again, overall, I do see New Mexico State probably is the more talented team, the team that finishes with the better record at the end of the season. I don't think you're going to be able to completely count the Lobos out this season. So I do think New Mexico wins this game. Call it a hunch, an upset, whatever you may. New Mexico does win. And the losing slide is going to continue here in your next couple of games, because you got 2 teams coming up in Conference USA that are still going to be pretty good. Now, while Sam Houston may sort of stumble and crawl and roll their way through non-conference with not a lot of success, once they get into the Conference USA ranks, bam, I think that's when they're going to hit the ground running and start finding a ton of success. They did it last year, and I think they're going to be able to do it this year. Not necessarily the slogging through non conference play part of things that I think will be a little bit new to the university this season. However, this football team, even with losing head coach Casey Keeler, has got some really nice pieces, such as Hunter Watson coming back at quarterback, other nice offensive, defensive pieces. Phil Longo's going to be your head coach. He's familiar with this program. He was a coordinator here way back when. Sam Houston, going to be a good team this season once they get into conference ranks, and they are more talented than the Aggies in Las Cruces. And then even after bye week on the road against Liberty, that's just a really, oh, by the way, you have to play that Sam Houston game on a short week, so that also doesn't help you. The Liberty game, I just don't think that that's going to go well for you at all. Liberty, still going to be one of the most talented group of five teams in the country. They can rival the Boise States and James Madisons and Tulanes and Navies and all of those teams as the potential group of five representative in the college football playoff as that fifth highest ranked conference champion. Liberty's going to be a good team, even without Caden Salter and Quentin Cooley this year. They're very well coached by Jamie Chadwell, and I think that's a loss for New Mexico State. So now you get into the back half of the schedule, and yeah, look, while the back I should say that second stretch of games there, Louisiana Tech, New Mexico, Sam Houston, Liberty, those are some tricky ones. It starts to get a little bit easier when you get into the back end. And again, you play a lot of those what you could consider middle of the road teams. You got two of them right here. In fact, these two, Missouri State and Kennesaw State, could even be towards, if not at the bottom of the conference at the end of the season. And I do think you beat both of them, but it comes at a price at winning the game, or I should say losing the game in between. I think you do beat Missouri State. This is a Bear team that when I compare them to Delaware, I think needs some more time than the Blue Hens do to be able to find that success at the FCS level. Missouri State's going to go through a learning curve. It'll happen this season, but I think they'll get it figured out rather quickly as the years go on. Western Kentucky continues to be one of the best teams in the conference, and Tyson Helton is going to have that again this season over there in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Western Kentucky is still a really good team. Even though they are losing a lot of pieces, I like Maverick McIver at the quarterback position. And really, a lot of this team is being overhauled through the transfer portal, but I like a lot of the pieces they bring in. I think they bring in some really nice talent, and I think they're going to be one of the best teams in Conference USA yet again this season. Already told you I think they beat Kennesaw State. Now, we'll throw in this caveat. I would watch out for the Owls this season because they have a top 10 returning production factor in college football. All the production that they had last season, most of it is coming back on top of the fact that they are adding more and more talent through the transfer portal, such as Dexter Williams at quarterback, a familiar name to a lot of fans of Big Ten football and Power 4 football in general, and they add on a lot more pieces than him there as well. Kennesaw State, you could say exceeded expectations last year because myself included, there were a lot of people out there that thought they weren't going to win a thing last year, and they won 2 games. They could easily double that win total this year, and Kennesaw can still prove to be a solid bunch. But as of right now, I am going to say that Kennesaw State still going to find their struggles as they continue to improve in FBS play, and New Mexico State wins that game. I don't think there's any question you're going to drop this one to Tennessee on the road, even though, again, it's not just Nico. Dylan Sampson, wide receiver pieces, James Pierce on defense, they're all gone. Tennessee might not be as good as they were last year. It's still going to be a really good team, at the very least, the team that'll finish in the top half of the SEC. And Tennessee, or I should say New Mexico State, simply going to be no match for this Volunteer team. I also think you go on the road and lose to the UTEP Miners. I love the direction that Scotty Walden is taking this program. I like a lot of the talent that UTEP does possess. My apologies, whether that's Skylar Locklear at the quarterback position. I think they got a solid, albeit young, but it's going to be a solid running back room. Some really good wide receiver pieces, Jaden Smith, Kenny Odom, Cam Thomas. I like all 3 of those names, and the connection they're going to have with Locklear this year, I think is going to give a lot of defenses a lot of trouble, including this one that's got to fill in for a lot of secondary pieces. But however, I do think New Mexico State gets more than a 1-game improvement from last year. I think they get a 2-game improvement. And while I like Middle Tennessee, and I have over the past couple of seasons, they've burned me, I decided to trust myself again this year. Might have been a bad idea, and project Middle Tennessee to honestly be a pretty good team because I think they have one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the group of 5 ranks in Nick Vadiato. He is a really good player. Middle Tennessee has got a lot of learning and transitioning to do under Derek Mason to take that next jump this season under him. And I do think there is going to be a game or two where they falter, where maybe you're not really expecting them to. This could be a perfect one at the end of the season, especially if they've already had a pretty successful year. So, again, didn't have my record range on there apparently. So there you go. It's on there now. Like I said, I think there's a couple games of improvement here with New Mexico State this season. And it really all does boil down to the fact that I think Logan Fife is going to dramatically improve what this team did. Or I should say, they're going to improve. He's going to improve what this team does at the quarterback position this year. That took me forever to get out. So Logan Fife is going to be a big upgrade here to this program. However, I still got a lot of questions about the defense. Some skill position questions still have got to be answered for me. And while I overall like a lot of the talent better than what they had last year, I still don't think it's enough with their schedule. More building's going to have to be done under Tony Sanchez, but it will be a better team than you saw last season. Thanks so much for watching the video. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and let me know what you think about the Aggies in the comment section below. See you in the next one. Goodbye.